All right, item 2 on the agenda was reorganization. So I'll gladly stay on the chair if people want me to be the chair.
Remove for you, stay on the chair.
I don't know if we need to vote, thank you. I honestly don't remember who our vice chair was. Was it you?
I don't think we have one.
I don't think we did.
Do we need one? Okay. So the other, just for people that are unaware, is the makeup's always been 2 coaches. The director of facilities is Tony D'Onofrio, 2 MAU board members, and 2 parents. Getting it?
If I can interrupt you, it's at the MAU board meeting, and I think, didn't they mention wanting to have student representatives?
There was,
too?
and the original, back 4 years ago, right, in 2017, we had students, like I said, I think they graduated, or we had, so I would be open to adding students back as well. I don't know if that's something, Mike, you could.
There was one student who was on the original, but then,
They're probably
Yeah.
at this point.
yeah, they are.
I just don't think I think it would be a good idea.
100% agree. Yes, student input is huge. If we can get someone back, I don't know if that's something you want to see, Mike.
Will do, yeah.
As the athletic director. With Susan, what's the student, Dave, yes, we're the board representatives, no longer being a board member, and with Kayla being a board member, I thought the easiest fix would to change your role from parent to board member, but I don't know if
That's fine.
that's something we can do.
The MAU board already
They
approved
approved
that.
it.
They did, okay. So then adding a parent, I know you have 2 students that went here.
Yes.
Lori Groton, who's in the meeting next door, will hopefully join us shortly, is the other parent. I think it makes, I don't want to lose the years you've had on this committee and the knowledge that you've brought. You originally came on as the parent
Yes,
and then switched to the MAU when you got elected.
yes.
I'd like to just have Susan slot back to that parent role if everyone's okay with that. And then, second, I spoke with Paul Redding. He's the second coach on the committee. Going into his track season, he is just too busy and going too many different directions and asked to step aside. He still wants to be involved, but doesn't want to formally be on the committee anymore. Zeb Minor had heard, he's the boys varsity soccer coach for that doesn't know. But now Zeb asked if he could have a role on this committee, and we mentioned with Paul possibly stepping away that he could take that role. Unfortunately, he's doing a couple of he had coaching prior commitment tonight, so he couldn't be here tonight. But does the board feel okay with appointing Zeb in that position? I think it makes sense, you know, as a soccer coach. Again, going into lacrosse and spring season, I know it'd be hard to add any of the lacrosse coaches at this time. I know they want to be involved and will help out when we ask them, but for the meetings and whatnot, so that's a good fit.
Okay.
So any other reorganization that we need to do? I think that was it. So our third item was just next steps. I know at last week's Mount Anthony meeting, we as a committee from day one have, you know, charged to, you know, we worked for the board. We originally asked, you know, recognize there was a problem, form this committee to try to find a solution to the problem. Obviously, we've had 2 unsuccessful votes. So what do we do next? So I'll just put that out there as discussions. I can start with what I've heard for suggestions, or I don't know if I want to put my personal thoughts, but I've heard a lot of people. I want to call it Monday morning quarterbacking, but you know, after the vote, a lot of people are, hey, have you tried this? Have you had ideas with that? And you know, we tried this, we tried that. I think you know, the vote was what, 51 to 49%, was 81 total votes, so under a 2% margin of victory. A lot of people have asked, you know, can we vote again? What's the policy on voting again? I believe word from legal is that you can vote on the same wording of a bond, the same bond, twice in 1 calendar year. So that is an option to just vote again, ask for the 3 million again, and vote again. You guys discussed at the last meeting, again, correct me, board members, possible special election. I think I heard there is a cost to that, around 4,000. Is that right, Renee?
If we do it apart from anything
Another
else.
election, yeah. The problem with tacking on to the presidential election in November is those ballot, because it's a state and federal election, anyone that does absentee ballots, those will be mailed directly, and they wouldn't get the local ballot in their mailing. And if they don't get it in their local mailing, we'd have to mail it separately, then adding cost. So it would be impacted by, and if someone doesn't request the local ballot, then they wouldn't get it, even when they got the federal and the state one. So there's no benefit to voting in November, even though turnout might be higher. So if we went a route with special election, there was some correspondence I saw from the different town clerks with the MEU clerk and vacations and whatnot. Mid-June would probably be the best time to do that. July, August wouldn't work. Early June wouldn't work. So it would be a quick turnaround if we decide to do a special election this summer. So that's a window. I have heard several people have reached out about possible fundraising. I think if we really try to push fundraising, that's a lot of bottles in a bottle drive. And I really think that's something that needs a separate committee. So my recommendation would, if the Mount Anthony Board create another committee that is just specializing, I think it's a good idea. If we can lower the cost of the taxpayer burden through fundraising, I think a special committee that someone has a background in capital projects, raising that type of funds, I think a committee would be better set for a committee that's only focused on that, not everything. I don't know how people feel on that. I don't know if the MAU board can do that. I know legal said we could. And for those watching at home that weren't aware of the discussions we've already had on fundraising, is that it's creates an interesting web when you're trying to fundraise for a project that's not approved yet. And what do you do with the funds that you've collected if a project never goes? So someone said, hey, I want this money for the turf field. The money never happens. You give that money back. It becomes an accounting nightmare. So are you accepting pledges? The accounting piece of it is not, doesn't seem easy. So again, if a committee takes it on, maybe they can find a company there are several companies that do crowdsourcing. I know GoFundMe, I don't believe it's an option for schools, but there are some options for crowdsourcing for schools. That committee could reach out to prominent alumni and see, maybe some sizable donations. I know some people have mentioned creating a campaign where we have a plaque at the new facility. You have different, the Patriot Club or the Varsity Club based on, larger donations. I wish we had a Williams College or someone that could give a large donation like that to help with this project. But I think if a committee is formed to explore that, maybe that would help. I think, again, we're still looking at a lot of money to have to fundraise. I don't see how this project gets off without over approval one way or another. I know when Pittsfield put their field in, they didn't have the money right away, and I believe it was the mayor was quoted as saying, "We don't have the money, but we'll find it." And they approved the project and they found the money and got their project done. So I don't know, board members, is that something that we form another committee just for fundraising? Is that an option?
I think it had to be discussed at the board meeting, but I can't see why.
We already have kind of, and I don't know whether they're carried over, but we already have the approval from the MAU board for the brick fundraiser.
Right.
That it's all set to go.
Right.
But we didn't want to pull a trigger on it until we had
The project.
a project.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah.
I think that would carry over. We can clarify with Renee and Stephanie, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to serve on that. I ask for money every day.
Well, I just think a coordinated effort with an organized letter, reaching out to alumni. Because I've had several people, I wish this passed, I'll give the first $100. Where can I've had several people ask me, and I wanted to send them to the Booster Club. I was like, hey, the Booster Club is always looking for donations, but it wouldn't be earmarked for the field. And anyone can always give to the booster. But then the boosters, you make the decision on that. The Booster Club makes decisions how that money is spent. So I don't know the best route. So I think if we can get another committee that's their sole focus, that might help. And it shows that we're doing everything we can to
We did
Good
talk
start.
about though with, Principal Payne and I can't remember with high school and Renee, is
Kristen,
Christina, yep, not earmarking it specifically for the field, it's for
Yeah,
the complex, not.
gotcha. So it would be for a
We can't-
complex, so if we made
Yeah.
upgrades to the lights or track,
Right,
that money.
Yeah.
could
or
go-
like even the
Scoreboard?
or whatever,
forward, thank you.
Gotcha.
Any,
Gotcha. So anything at the facility, so
yes,
again, how the wording of the letter that goes out,
Yes.
you know, crowdsourcing works, you know, we have a large alumni base, I don't know. I know, grants, some people have sent me links to, energy efficiency, the federal government. I've passed those along to Holly and Tony just this morning. So I know if we can get some energy efficiency stuff, again, a lot of grants want to see projects ahead of time. Hopefully we can find some where we can get some money to convert to, energy efficiency. Again, the last quote we had, the track was like, correct me if I'm wrong, the track was like 500 and something, 550, the lights were like 450. And the turf field itself was 2 million. So, you know, it would drop the cost of, the project if someone would say, hey, we can give you a grant for, you know, the lights or whatever.
So that's one of the things that I think as a committee, we've got to talk about. And I know we were all for, hey, we want to combine all the projects together.
Yeah.
We wanted to do all three of them. I don't think the school and the athletic program can take another year of, oh, we're waiting for a vote and the vote doesn't happen. And now we're just kicking the can further. We've got to do something about the track. You know, it has to be done. It should have been done probably 5 years ago. We've funded new tracks before, you know, through the budgetary, you know, process. And so I don't know if that is something that as a, you know, committee, we can say, hey, let's look at funding, you know, for a redo of the track. And, you know, take care of that out of something that isn't, just so we can start moving something.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go into June and have another vote and have that vote not, and throw the same thing and have the voters say, hey, we've told you twice already, we're not doing that. The problem is you know what the yes votes are. The yes is yes, we support this. The no, there's different no votes. Some are not going to vote for it because it's too much money. Some are not voting for it because of the plastic, you know, turf field. They just, oh, we'll support it. We just don't want the field. So trying to figure out what the no's mean is, I think, difficult, you know, and just being able to figure out that. Because I think people have different reasons for voting no on the project. I want something, you know, to happen. So in my mind, I was saying, okay, can we work on the track? Can we try to get a track ready for the next spring season? Not this spring, but for the next spring season. While that's happening, can we, and Tony and I have talked about, can we take the bleachers out from where they are inside the track, move them to another side? And can we like widen out the field? Can we, you know, not and replace it with turf on it, but can we, you know, kind of work on that and see, hey, guess what? We're putting a little like Band-Aid, and I know it's not going to solve all the problems, but it is going to give us a bigger field. Well, we can relay grass, relay sod. The other thing is that I don't know the answer to this. What has to be done underneath, based on, I know you got the geo study, what has to be done underneath? Can we do what has to be done underneath? No matter if we're laying grass on it or turf on it, like, is it a similar process that's got to be done underneath? I don't know the answer.
First
That
of all,
would be.
Sorry, I'm late, everyone, but I just come from middle school softball practice. But we absolutely can, but I can tell you that we did not put money in the budget next year to do a cost of tearing up the entire field getting rid of the under, all the bedrock and everything that we found, and then putting the surface under there. And you'd want to put surface, hoping that someday we do get a turf. So you'd want to gear it towards, I believe the surface, the under surface, not right under the turf or the grass, but the base would be pretty much the same. It's got to drain, it's got to, do all that. So, but there's we didn't put any money in there, and that's a catastrophic job that would make it, in my opinion, starting it like tomorrow, it would be tough to get it done, new field and grass, and be playing in the fall. Realistically, and we gotta find the money. We don't have the money for that.
The original MSK, I don't want to say we're throwing, good money at a bad problem, but the original MSK report that we received, the reason this committee decided to go with turf was that cost of the track is cost of the track, it doesn't change. Cost of lights is lights. The underground work, as you said, was the majority of the project. And then going with grass was like 200,000, where adding the turf was just, I think, I don't want to say just, but was 700,000 more.
Right.
So we were looking at, the difference between the grass and the turf, 700 to 800,000 difference, depending on what type of infills we use. And we thought it was a good investment for a 10 times the usage, because the number one problem we have is the underutilized facility of grass. That doesn't add across, it doesn't add, I agree, we gotta get the track done.
The bleachers are, I'm working on getting a price to move the bleachers. I don't see how that won't happen. We'll be able to do that. We talked about moving them on the other side, all that kind of stuff. So we talked about doing that. I have a price of last fall of $55,000 to patch the track. I agree with Mike 100%. We can't patch that track because we're gonna spend that money, we're gonna patch it, and it's gonna happen somewhere else. It needs to be redone. So we gotta figure out what that looks like. In turn, by moving the bleachers, we can get prices to see about making the field wider with grass. We're gonna have some drainage work that we're gonna have to do because it's gonna impact where the drainage is. I don't know what that price, realistically, I don't know what that price is gonna look like. I really don't.
To me, to move the bleachers and not address the field, it's a moot point, because right now the field is crowned, and then you've got a low spot where all the water drains near where the bleachers is. So you wouldn't move them and then leave it as
But
it.
realistically, I think we'll be able to do that, is what I'm saying. I don't think that cost is gonna be phenomenal. I don't know. I have to, Pete knows a little bit more about the drainage and how it works there. So, I could talk to him about, because obviously we'd have to move those. But I remember we talked about the field width and how much we need to add, and it wasn't astronomical. So,
With budgeting, so the 25 budget set, if we try to do the track, we can't just, find money from the budget, reallocate other projects that are needed. So we could try to put it in the 26 budget, but we know the base cost for a track is gonna be 450 to 550,000. Again,
Now.
that you're just not, so you have to
You don't
build
know
it
what's
in.
gonna happen in
Exactly,
26.
so for the 26 budget, again, budgeting how I budget at my house, a bond for this project, annually, the cost was 350,000. So the tax implications of adding the track in 1 year is more expensive hit than approving the bond. So to me, when I'm trying to budget this, if this never gets approved, we will spend $10 million on that facility in the next, $3 million in the next 10 years.
With Band-Aids.
That's my point, is I'm trying to, the burden on the taxpayers will ultimately be equal, again, not increasing usage. So that's where I'm trying to, and maybe that's the route we go with this, if we decide to vote in June, is here is the annual cost if this is approved in June. In 26 budget, this would be added as a line item. If not, we have to add the track first in 26. That would be the implication. So people could see that handout, see that information. Your tax implication would be this by approving the bond for year 20, or the 2026 budget through, if it's a 10-year, whatever, 2034, 35 budget. Or in 2026, we have to add the track 450. And then in 2027, we have to add the lights.
And my question with the lights though, how do you do the track and not do the light? Wouldn't you have to rip up the track to get to do the lights?
No, they're on the outside.
It's on the outside?
It's gonna cost more in the long run because like you said, the crew that's coming to do the track And it's the same companies that are gonna do the lights,
Mhm.
so do the work while
And
you're
if they
there.
come in, it's gonna do the.
So it's not gonna, exactly, so that's the point of bundling, I hate this compared to Comcast, but like when you bundle things together, there are some cost savings that overlap. You know, we've discussed this several times as a committee and presented it several times. So I know all of you know that information, but here are your two options. We
I mean,
present
I
to the
just
public.
think that's one of the things that we all want to go everything,
Yep.
you know, and people say, oh, it's the,
In the long run, that's.
But economically, it makes sense to
Correct.
do everything.
oh, but it's the
that's
premier plan, it's the premier, but can we and I don't know how, bond, like the votes work, Renee, maybe you can speak up on it, like, can we have like multiple options, as far as things are written, or is it like, you choose one and that's like.
I would say like we do it this way, vote yes or no, or we do it this way, vote yes or no.
Yeah.
You could do multiple articles on the same ballot, I'm assuming that Article
but-
A would read what we just did, Article B would be another, right? Theoretically, Renee?
Theoretically, yes.
I mean,
You could end up with a
theoretically,
huge
but it-
mess.
Yes. Well,
Me,
one of them might pass.
it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense.
I agree.
Because what happens if Article C gets voted on and it's just the lights? What do we do then?
Yeah, and I
You've
don't
got
know if you
lights,
get
but
a,
you still can't play lacrosse on it.
can you get is there a minimum amount for a bond, Renee? So we could bond because I'm thinking the lights, 300,000, it'd be easier just to build that into the budget, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
Holly is looking at efficiency Vermont and
Yeah.
it's working. I gave her what we wanted and she is looking at that. But again, a lot of these companies, and you guys already said it, they're not gonna give you a grant without a project.
You have to have the project before the grant. That's just the way it
And I don't
operates.
think voters understand that.
I did hear a lot of comments about, we did what we thought we could do with our informational meetings, with, trying to get the word out. Unfortunately, not many people came. So I think that maybe we do something that, we just advertise it better and get more people there. And maybe we have a community forum kind of Facebook page where we can engage with questions.
Yeah, I think with the weather, if we have a June vote, we have our informational meeting scheduled for outside, and if there's inclement weather, we have it inside, but I think having a meet and greet, have people come and walk the track, that they see the track, walk the field, and then have our, official meeting right there on Spinelli.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not one for talking in front of people, but I think we need to get the news, even if it is Albany and Burlington. We need to get the news out there. On the news, on News 10,
Yeah.
on Channel 13, or whatever it is around here, and in Burlington. Because people might see that more than Facebook. But we also need to stress that we need a yes vote. We're asking for so much, but it's up to this amount. But we cannot apply for the grants until the voters say yes to this, because grants will not issue us a grant without knowing the project is in the works. So that's why we're saying up to this amount, because we will be applying for grants
And fundraising.
and fundraising.
We'll get some.
But we
We'll
need
get
to
some grants,
have
we'll
a
get
yes
fundraising,
before
it's gonna
any of
happen.
this other stuff can be legally put in place.
I think you actually just reminded, so when I came into tonight, my two recommendations for next steps, one was to can the MAU board form a fundraising committee? The second one is, I know we have a communications officer, but can we utilize her role, or can we hire a public relations team, or can we seek someone to maybe do the work as a donation, Facebook, targeted Facebook ads for information, because the turnout was low at the information. So is there a way to run targeted ads either through Facebook or, again, I don't know, the community, she's the expert in communication, so maybe
I mean, I know we have Cat TV on here, and Cat TV did our informational sessions, but I remember when, we ran for positions a bajillion years ago when I was on the Bennington School Board, there was like a panel, like we did some sort of like question and answer, and it was at Cat TV Studios, and there was questions that, and then the panel answered those questions. So we can do something like that too, where it's, you know, it's these commonly asked questions like about fundraising, about grants, about what happens to the turf when it's hits its end date. What does that look like? And then we could potentially have some of those guest speakers there too to answer some of those questions. So an informational session that is more publicly, I guess, televised than Cat TV coming to a meeting.
Yeah.
It's something we could plan, like
Right.
more like a debate or,
Right.
you know, like the select board debates where.
You have a comment?
I want to ask, why was the turnout low?
For the informational meeting?
No, for the vote. You keep on saying that you didn't get a very good turnout.
We
So
were talking about the
why was
informational
that?
sessions.
At the
The meetings.
Oh, not at the voting.
No,
Yeah.
turnout, I mean, turnout at the vote is, I mean, Bennington traditionally, I think this was big, a larger turnout than normal for town meeting, but town meeting or any vote in Bennington unfortunately doesn't get a large population. I don't know why the public meetings weren't, maybe being on a Monday and Tuesday night, you know, after work for some people might have been tough. Yeah, Cat TV did air them on Facebook and they were there for people to comment after the fact, so,
And there were a decent amount of views,
yes.
but who knows how long those people stayed
They were
on.
long, they were long meetings, I agree with, the attention span of most people, it's hard to sit through an hour.
You know, I just want,
I
I'm just.
actually have
wondering-
you, share your name for the record, I'm sorry,
It's Phyllis Post,
thank you.
and, I drive for DeFord, so I drive the kids to high school and to middle school and elementary school. My husband was telling me that our taxes are gonna go up 18%. We are retired. I'm 80, he's 81. That means we have to pay $800 more on our taxes.
I don't know how accurate that
And-
is, 18% isn't the school increase this year.
Well, it said our taxes are gonna go up 18%.
Not
So-
at the schools, I can't, I mean, that's,
When you say not at the schools, what do you
the school
mean?
budget isn't up 18%, so I don't know.
Right, but I mean, you know, when everything's put together, you know, the school and everything, and a good share of it. But, you know, we live on a fixed income, and even I at 80 am working full-time. To try to hang on to your home and that, we have no children in the school system. We will have no grandchildren in the school system. So you're dealing with people like myself who don't have any vested interest. Excuse me, I lost a tooth just last week. And I haven't been able to take a day off to go get my tooth fixed. But anyways, so I'm just trying to give you a picture of the other side. And I think you have a very good idea. I mean, you know, it's nice to do everything, like when you're working in your home. Oh, well, let's do this while we're doing this, and, you know, it just can't, but it's, you know, maybe you can't get it all, but maybe, you know, if you do it piece by piece, even though it might cost you a little more in the end, it's not such a big punch all at once to people like, for instance, us in our family. So,
You're
you
saying you
know,
want to pay more.
no, I'm saying that
That's what
if
you
it,
said.
no, what I'm saying is, over a period of time, it's, you know, we're budgeting. I mean, it's like when we want to do something in our home, we have to budget that. We can't just say, oh, well, we're gonna do the roof and then we're gonna put this, you know, we have to gradually go.
That's kind of how we're doing the bond vote. It would be 350,000 a year, not 3 million a year. It's just, so that 3 million, we're trying to spread it out over 10 years. If we never get this approved, we'll have to do the track in 1 year.
So that's
Well, that-
$500,000
That's
in
1 year, $500,000 hit versus taking that 500,000 and spreading it out over 10 years in a budget. Same with the track and the field. So we are trying to spread it out over 10 years versus a 1 year budget hit. We were trying to avoid those spikes 1 year annually in someone's tax bill by spreading it out on that 10-year period. So that is, I mean, if I'm trying to, you know, invest in my house, that's how I want to look. I don't, you know, take a home equity loan and pay it back in the first year. We try to get good terms and spread it out. When I buy a car, I'm not paying cash when I walk in to buy a car. I try to find better rates. And so that's as a committee was our goal, was that how do we understand that this is an investment in the school, but in the long run, in 15 years, we can actually be paying less for maintenance on this facility than we currently pay for projection. So in the long run, we'll actually pay less.
And in
I attended, excuse me. I attended the meeting that you had at the high school. And you mentioned, the labor of keeping the grass cut and all this and that, but you didn't mention what the cost is gonna be for maintaining the AstroTurf. And do you have to, I would assume you'd have to buy new equipment just for the AstroTurf. All that wasn't covered.
Well, that's part of the cost of the project.
And then someone mentioned, when does this have to be replaced? And someone said, is it 7 years?
They're guaranteed for 8 years.
8 years,
Yep.
and
Most
that would be at
schools are-
700,000?
Yeah, again, so the scenario we gave, and I mentioned that night, was the 350,000 would be the annual payment. Most schools, so the field is guaranteed for 8 years. So anything happens in that first 8 years, the company comes back and fixes it. Rutland got 15 years. Most schools are getting 10, 12, 13 years. So if we had taken, what the projection was if we had taken out a bond, the annual hit would be 350,000. We make that payment for 10 years. If the field's still in good shape in 10 years, we don't stop making that payment. We could put that 350,000 into the reserve account. So year 10, 11, 12, you put that money there. Now you have $1 million in that reserve. Year 15, like Rutland now, or would be year 13 for us, you replace the resurfacing with the 700,000 is what Rutland's paying this year for theirs, with that money that's already in reserve. So in year 14, we actually would have zero to pay back on a brand new field that would then last us another 10 to 12 years. That's our goal, is to get to that point where we have a maintenance-free field, low maintenance field, and at a lesser cost than we're currently paying on today's dollars.
The average cost to maintain the turf field was 15,000 a year.
Versus the 100
170.
that we're currently paying.
Getting the grass.
And again,
needed, the lines.
Ultimately, not to keep going in circles, we currently only have about 20 events a year right now. We're trying to increase our usage for lacrosse, sub-varsity sports, phys ed,
Sports.
and then
Band.
other community partners. So it's more than just a high school field. We're trying to make this as an investment in the community. But if in that scenario, we would be paying, in year 14, we would be paying less than we're currently paying.
And it is like, I understand what you're saying with it not having any students in the school system, but an investment in any economy, an investment in a school is investing in your community and investing in your housing and all the things that contribute to your housing costs and all of that kind of stuff, what brings value to your home. So when you invest in your schools, you invest in your home and you invest in your community.
I certainly agree with that. The problem that I see as a school bus driver is I see homelessness wicked bad. I pick up kids all the time from motels that don't have a home. They don't have any place to live. Alcohol and drug. That doesn't bring the community up. I mean, that doesn't, that's something to be proud of. And yet we're putting all this money into a field. I just went to a select board meeting last night. And it doesn't look good. I mean, this town is hurting.
I'll be honest with you, I'm an early child care provider. My kids are all in college. I'm I run the booster club at the high school. I have no kids in the program. So there's nothing per se in it for me right now. Yes, I have a lot of daycare kids that will come through the program, but I don't get paid to do booster club. That's all volunteer for me. And in the fall, it's 40 hours a week along with my normal job. And it's my husband taking over my normal job so that he can watch the kids so that I can be there for these high school kids. But if you look at the high school kids, some of them are dropping out of sports because there's not a good field there. Their parents are asking them not to play because they're afraid of them hurting themselves because of the field, or kids just don't want to play on that field. If we get the kids into the sports or even band or any other program that is going to use that field, those kids are more likely to stay off of drugs. They're more likely to stay off of alcohol. They're more likely not to smoke. It would be better for the community in the long run. to have those kids in something instead of running the streets. And it would teach those kids to want to go to work. It would teach those kids a valuable life lesson.
It doesn't cost them a dime though. You know, money talks. And it doesn't cost the children a thing. You say that the kids need this. But it's not the kids that are paying for it. It is, you know, it's not the home, these children, and then these people that are in homes, without homes, they're not paying for it. They can't even pay for their own living. And then I'm paying, you know, so.
But do we want to keep that cycle going with these kids going into homelessness? By getting them into sports, we're teaching them valuable life lessons to say, oh, let's go get a job. Let's do this, let's do that. And we're trying, by that way, we're trying to end that cycle of the poverty, of the homelessness, and have them help the community and bring more to the community than what they're bringing now by just staying at home and playing video games or getting into drugs or getting into alcohol. That's what our goal is.
It's definitely sports is a definite plus for a student. There's no getting around it. Whether it be hockey, whether it be, you know, football, you know, whatever. And I'm not against sports at all. It's just I see so much need in this town. It's mind-boggling. This town is poor. We don't have a lot of money. And I'm not talking, I'm saying in general, it's, you know, we can all talk about, I'd love to have an AstroTurf and a great big, beautiful field to play football in and all that, but that's what you're up against, is that there's no money.
I think,
That's what you're up against. It's not because people don't want to see it and they don't want to improve the school and they don't want to, they do. I mean, like you say, that's a reflection of my property, you know, the school system and all that, but it's a tough, you guys are up against a wall because of the money, not just in this town, but every place. It's hurting bad.
I think we need to, and I agree with you, but I think we also need to look at the fact that we got to start somewhere if we want this to start improving, right? Everybody in this room wants this community to improve. We all know what the issues are. We all want it to improve. And I think creating something like this is creating a place for a community to come. My daughter's in a soccer clinic right now that she goes and they played Sunday on turf because they plowed, all right? And the amount of community access on a Sunday morning in this place is phenomenal. Everybody's going to the coffee shop. Everybody's walking the track. Everybody's doing it. I mean, there's people everywhere. And that's what I'm saying. If we create a complex that everybody can come to and everybody can enjoy and our different Southside soccer, our different leagues can access and use. People can come and walk the track. People can just come and play if there's nobody on there. You're creating a place for people to feel safe and want to come. There's tons of things. And we can keep going around in circles about, you know, this is going on in this town, this is going on in this town. But, you know, I think there's enough people in this town that want to see things change and get better. And it's got to start somewhere. You know, and I think investing in our future, which is our kids, investing in our school, which, you know, we put some kids in some pretty good colleges every year out of those schools. You know, they get great educations. And, you know, I think where else do you start? Where else do you start but in your school program in your town that encompasses 5-6 towns? Everybody goes to this school. Where else do you do it?
And the other point is, you know, I understand what you're saying, that they're not the ones paying for it, the students, you know, they need this, but we need to invest in our youth because our youth is our potential future for this town. And if we don't do something to make these students and these younger generations feel proud of the community that they're a part of, they're going to leave and we are going to lose them. And these are smart kids. They go to good schools and then they stay away. And we want them to come back. We want them to be proud of their community. I did not grow up here. I'm a transplant. I'm super proud of this community. And I want my kids to come back and be a part of this community and thrive here. But we have to invest in our community. And I understand that it's a lot of money. I understand that there are bigger problems in terms of socioeconomic problems. But as a school board, we only have so much control of that. we, as a school board, we cannot solve the homelessness. That is not
No.
within our purview. But we can invest in our schools. We can provide students a safe place, a place that they can be proud of. More kids wanting to be a part of sports because they become energized by the environment that they're a part of. I saw you scoff at the comment about kids not wanting to play because they're getting injured. There's a lot of truth to that, because when you're the actual parent that sits there and watches their kid go on that field, you hold your breath. Hold your, and when you're that parent, which I am
Yeah.
for the last many years and will be for the next 4, you hold your breath. So these kids are scared to play. And when they watch their friends blow their ACLs right in front of them, it's scary. Then there's trauma.
Our
So-
charge as the committee, sorry.
Yeah,
Our
so-
charge as the committee is to get the next steps.
yeah. So let's just invest in our community. I'll just.
Can I
end
say
it there.
something, Chad?
Sure.
And I'll try to keep it
All
brief.
right, thank you.
But what she said was not that. She said the kid, because of the shape of the field, the kids are dropping out. That's a bunch of crap. Okay, so let's up the dramatics
So
here.
let's not make it
Let's
personal.
but listen,
There is
Yeah.
anecdotal data that students are choosing not to play sports.
well, I disagree, but that's okay. That's my opinion. You have a different opinion.
And that's not opinion, it's fact. But go on.
Guys, I
This
don't want-
post is absolutely right. There are people scared to death. They can't, have a woman come to me, she's scared to death, can't fix a roof on her house. They can't fix a door in the house. And somebody said at the time, your taxes are only gonna go up $15. What a joke when they sit there and say that to people. You know, you gotta take in consideration, not everybody has a lot of money around here. But with the town, you gotta change the people that are in the select boards and everything else. It's okay to put $11,000 or $15,000 drug machine over here so they can have Narcan, for Christ's sake. It's crazy.
But this is
That's not why we're here.
I understand
That's not
that.
why we're here.
So let's bring it
Let's
back.
bring it back.
Okay, anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sir, thank you. Appreciate the apology.
Yeah,
So
I'm
Next steps.
wondering, I'd like to see some of you clever people do a printout and it would say, let's compare. We take the 300,000 that it would cost for the bond. And then the grass field, you add up all Tony's costs, the mowing, the fertilizer, the pesticide, lime, aeration, the Band-Aid, fixing the track, the lights, et cetera. See what that costs. And the other column, you put, how many games are we playing on our existing
it's
field?
like the cost per game
And
scenario.
then you put all the other games that you're going to be playing, like you're going to be playing more football, more soccer, lower levels. You're going to be playing night lacrosse. You'd be playing soccer on a legal field. The phys ed people can go out there, the band can go out there, youth, tournaments, et cetera. So you put out this let's compare, let people look at what they're getting and what it's
A
costing.
one pager, that's part of the, I think, the education process. So that was recommended. We, nice handout here. That's part of the stuff that's on here about communication to people. I don't know if you want to share this.
Sure.
Before we get into our.
I just
step.
I call it, it would fall under the hood of a financial impact information, the cost of the project, let's call it $100. The bonds that are coming off in the budget now that can accommodate some of the payments that can be made towards the bond itself. What is that first net impact to the taxpayer? Then second, cost bonds coming off a rainy day fund contribution. We do have some money in reserve. Would a board vote on something like that? Maybe, maybe not, but at least the question should be raised. What is that net impact to the taxpayer? Cost bonds coming off rainy day fund, and then revenue generation, estimates. What can we do with this facility once it's a project and once it's built? Then add on, which I didn't even think of tonight, take away maintenance. You could be at this thing may cost $55,000 a year when you take away those numbers. I'm not saying I know them, I'm saying we should drill
I
down.
do know some of them.
Well, then you should probably join the committee, but we should be able as a committee to get to a drill down menu that has a plus or minus of 5 or 10% or assign a dollar number to it so that we can put out accurate financial information to the people and then you're armed with the knowledge. If we're over the top, you'll know it, and if we're not, you'll know it.
The other thing that Dave was saying about, I just want to say something. Dave gave that, that's fine. What about the equipment that you may want to buy and you have to send these guys to learn how to repair the field? That's another cost that's not being mentioned here. And I think once you look at that, you're not gonna save all that much money. I'm just saying that.
So
Is there any, and again, I'm going back to big picture stuff, I'm pragmatic here, we're trying to, and I appreciate the voters, like, approving the school budgets, right? I mean, so this is part of like the question and where I'm like stuck. It's not that they're, like, I mean, to me, if the bond went down, I thought that the budgets would have gone down as well. So they were supportive of education, they just weren't, we weren't quite enough, 51, 49%, for the, to go. And again, I think the no's are for different reasons, I don't think all the no's are the same reason, But would the board consider, and again, this is like, I'm just throwing out, like using some of the rainy day fund or whatever for track so that we could, get moving on something. I know it's not in the budget for, this coming fiscal year, but that would get us, kind of moving along, momentum, and let's start going. I really don't think a majority of the no's were no's because they didn't want to upgrade the track. I mean, more of the community uses the track than does it. And they know that it hasn't been done in 20 plus years. So I don't know if that's something that we can talk about or say. And then that would come off of, the overall, project, just so we can kind of get things going. And once things get going, maybe that's like momentum.
for next steps, just to recap, that's one recommendation we can bring to the board, is that we access the reserve account to pay for the track as soon as possible.
Upgrades for
Upgrades to
next year.
resurfacing the track as
And
soon as
also
possible.
provides and calls it a project.
Yeah, I don't know if going into that reserve account is a good move, but that's our job is to make recommendations. That is a non-Anthony board decision.
And wasn't there this, and I know I'm not on the board anymore, but I was on the board, and there was discussion amongst the board not to use that fund at all, because we need it for exactly what it was purposed for, rainy day fund,
Or even tax stabilization, right?
Huh?
Tax stabilization if there was a spike or something.
Yes, so,
So I get why that account was created and why money was there. I don't know, I mean, but our job is a recommendation, so
Yeah.
that's one of the recommendations.
Again, though, I think you just said it, that we could ask the board to use that,
But then that would create a project that we could then, raise money for,
That's
go
a
after
good
grants for. So it may be as simple as, could we use up to, and then we got a project. Maybe
Again,
we don't have to.
good discussion for the board.
Yeah.
Smarter people than I can make that decision.
Yeah.
So that's one recommendation we can report out to the board. I know at the last MAU meeting, there was strong support that they wanted to see another vote soon. So if
Sooner
that
rather
that could make a recommendation that we have. I think, I mentioned it earlier, does it make sense to do a special election versus
I don't think so. My
the presidential?
I think we go, well, no, I think we go for June. I
Yeah.
don't think we tag.
Well, I just think
that
you lose potential voter turnout with the confusion of the absentee situation. And so is that a recommendation? Possibly? Question?
Can I just interject a little bit? So just been listening.
Yeah.
I think before you go to another.
I know
vote,
you, can you just for
Dick
people?
O'Neill.
Thank you.
But before we go to another vote. Yeah, I've heard a lot of things tonight, and there's a lot of things that I didn't know. I was a supporter because I think overall it's needed. It certainly didn't dive into all the numbers. But I think I fall in the majority of that didn't dive into all the numbers. Not necessarily, obviously not the majority that fell into supporting. I think Mike's brought up a really good point in that, why are there no's? Okay? You brought up a great point, the cost benefit analysis that Tony was talking about of bringing down costs down the road so you pay it off, the additional revenue that can be generated. So I guess I would caution about going after another vote without some of that being known.
Oh, there was
Because
also a lot of
otherwise,
bad information.
you might just get the same damn result.
Yeah.
And if that happens, where are you at?
Yeah, I think if we're gonna go for another vote, we need to do some sort of major advertising like we've been talking
I
about.
think that cost analysis.
The cost analysis is a great idea. I also think we have to have another back, I think people need to, we need to find out the no's. We need to invite, maybe put something in the paper saying, if you were against the Spinelli Field and
Tell us, yeah.
tell us why.
Against.
We would love to understand, and this will give you the opportunity to ask questions and that we can potentially answer that maybe you felt that's why you voted no.
And I don't know, Brad, I'm gonna throw this back to you. I think that if like there was a proposal for a bond for a track and for lights and a new grass, field at Spinelli, and the cost for that was, let's say, 2 million, 2.2, whatever it was, whatever that may, like, I think you were one who was like, you didn't want the turf, I don't know. I think that I know you had talked about, do we need the turf? Like, and you brought some stuff from the Boston Globe. I remember from the meeting you were talking about, that. So are there people out there that would vote for a project that didn't include an artificial turf field, but were saying, no, I would help fund a project, we just don't want, the
Or
turf.
is there misinformation about that?
Right.
That we can answer and provide some guidance on.
But well, number one, I think most people will support a running track, repair the field. I don't know what the hell we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. Has anybody been doing that field at all?
We have.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
all right. So you would get support for that. You have a lot of people in this town that don't want to see a turf field here. Now, you can listen to that or you don't, but you've had 2 votes. And like this gentleman has said, you're ticking people off. In other words, what they look at, and I said it at a meeting before I was kicked off the board, you're backdooring the taxpayer, you're going out for votes, you're gonna do it anyway. Now, there was $1 million, I was gonna ask Renee about that. $1 million that was taken out of the reserve fund. What happened to that money? Where is it? Is it sitting in a thing? Are you spending it? I don't know. Have there been a deal made with a company, a turf company? That's because they want to have certain things in place before they'll go do materials or anything. There's a lot of things. I have all this paperwork. I got a stack like that of all the prices and stuff. Nobody knows what the hell you're doing and what's going on. But as far as a track, fix the field, fix the bleach, sure, you could get that passed. But when you put something on a ballot again about a turf field, I'm telling you, you're gonna turn people away. And I don't care how much crap you put out there. Well, we gotta have this for our children and if our education will be better. They don't care because they don't believe that. Now, a lot of people, and I've said it before, they can't afford, they don't want to see that. They've said no. You people are saying, well, we're gonna do it anyway. Because that's what they think right now. So you go out for a vote real quick, it's gonna go down the toilet. I guarantee it. Because people have had enough. And you got your 40% inflation. We're in a damn recession now. Of course, people probably say you're not, but you are. And you keep adding costs to people that really can't. I don't know what our kids are gonna do as far as trying to buy a home or an apartment or a car. They're not gonna have that money. So anyway.
Real quick,
I went to a private parochial school, high school, and I want to tell you, the alumnus really rally around to that school. So you people need to get back into your alumni roster and find out how many doctors, how many dentists, how many that, and
thank you.
hit them.
Right. No, and that's part of, I think, that
Because
committee
this is
that
what
we
we're trying to
mentioned
do
for
in this
fundraising.
high school and we're not getting it passed. Can you give us help? You haven't, have you done that at all?
We haven't been able to
So
do
that's-
that
yeah.
per se, because it all comes down to the funding.
So I think.
They've been very hesitant about letting us do fundraising because we don't know if the project is gonna get approved by the
So
the
again,
community members.
for recommendations, what our task force, my recommendation, I think we agree, is that we ask the MAU board to create a fundraising committee and then gear that committee towards raising money for the athletic facilities. Then we can raise money for the facilities, and as long as that money is geared toward the facility, it doesn't have to be turf, it could be the track, it could be the lights, it could be any upgrades for the facility, and that would be the alumni outreach. So, I appreciate that thought, and that's.
I don't want you to think that I'm against you
Absolutely
people,
not,
I'm
no, I
not. I
appreciate the
just
insight,
thought
I
maybe
really
you
do.
could say, I could give you another side a little bit
Yep,
and
no,
have you
we need to
understand
see it.
the people
We
that
don't wanna be in
you're,
blinders, that's what I
that,
appreciate
you
it,
know, it's,
thank you.
and your idea, I think, is, you know, if you can't afford a Cadillac, then you're gonna have to, you know, if you can't make the payments on the Cadillac, well, then I guess I'm gonna have to drive a Chevrolet or something. You know, it's tough. It's nice to do it all.
So definite recommendations of where we're at, just like, I don't know if we're reporting this back to MAU, I can if we need to, at your next meeting, but, formation of a fundraising committee or goals to fundraise for the athletic upgrades. Potential to, use the reserve account to, pay for the track is a recommendation.
Correct. I mean, I don't think, this is just my perspective, is I don't want to wait until
No, I understand.
like another
Yeah, so we'll
budgeted
let-
year. So it would
again,
be,
We don't make any decisions, so
correct.
like, we'll let the MAU board make a decision, so that's a recommendation we can bring to them that was discussed. That the track is the most dire, I mean, I think we all agree that, you know, with the frosties and the sinkholes.
And on the reserve account, I just want there not to be any misunderstanding with Cat TV. It's not like there's the $1 million reserve account and there's another $1 million.
That's one, yeah.
It's this is all the same thing.
Yeah.
So we have not touched the $1 million.
Yes.
We didn't take it out and it's not sitting anywhere and
We only
hanging out.
did use some of it for the geotechnical. but
That was-
that was in the budget.
Right.
That was 50,000 from the budget. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear and that there wasn't misunderstanding that there's like this $1 million hanging out outside of the reserve.
Yeah. Another recommendation, again, I agree with most people here, just going back with the same dollar amount on the same exact bond in a short amount of time. I don't know if that is the right way to go. I mean, if the MAU board feels different, that's their choice. Going, you know, I looked at, you know, can we piece it out? Possibly, like you mentioned, with lights, track, and something else. And then down the road, that gives us more time to fundraise for turf. You know, I don't know what people think, you know, taking the track out and going for a bond for 2.6 million or 2.7 is a recommendation to make.
I know that we would find out if it's the turf, if we only asked for a turf field. I mean, that's, that, if you want to find out what the no is, like, you could just put that out.
Yeah, that
And
was
we
my
could
recommendation
leave
back in
the,
October.
we could leave the lights like as they are, you know, that could be something that comes on later, and maybe we could deal with the tracks separately, but it could be just a synthetic turf question.
I really
Okay.
think that if we did the track, and this is just my opinion, that it would have to go in combination with the lights. The lights are costing us money. They go out all the time. They buzz like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean.
No, I know, I'm
I
just
think that
saying,
maybe
I'm just saying if we
I'm
want
just
to
saying
find out,
two-part it.
if we want to find out the answer
Yeah.
to, is it about the
I think
turf?
we
you
need to
could-
ask.
Well, do you do a community survey again?
Yes.
I mean, I think you've already asked the question, you've
Yeah.
already gotten the answer, but who answered the questions? I think you had a pretty wide demographic that was
It was about
presented at the
800,000
public
800
informational
people.
hearing. But if, now that it's fresh in everybody's mind, do you revisit that?
And do we do more pointed questions? Because our questions were very general last time in terms of, do we feel that the Spinelli complex needs to be, you know, whatever. But do we have a survey specific for, like, the first question could be, you know, why did you vote no? And if you voted no, like, give them a couple of different choices. Is it the turf? Is it expense? Is it, and you maybe can select more than one. I don't know, but how we can possibly do that survey, but I do agree that we do need to kind of find out. Again, we're talking a margin of 40 people. If there were 41 voters that maybe were misinformed and went the other way, we're talking, it would have passed. So I think there's some misinformation out there. And I think we have an opportunity to clarify some of that misinformation, because we saw it all over Facebook, the misinformation. But I think it was a little too late by that point. I think that information didn't get out quick enough. So, or somehow that conversation didn't happen quick enough. So is it more town meetings? Is it more opportunities to ask questions? But but we do need to understand the no's, because there are some no's, because it doesn't matter what we ask for. They're gonna say no because they don't want to spend the money. There's that whole group too.
I mean, I think if you break out just the turf and you replace it with grass, and we have a ballpark idea of what that's gonna cost, I really don't think it's gonna be that much less with the work that has to be done there. So, you know, that would really tell you what the community, is the community against turf, or are they against the price? Because if they approve that, then it's obviously not the price, it's the turf,
But
you know?
I have to say it, is even if we went with grass, we're still talking about
Oh,
Usage.
restricted play.
usage.
Yeah.
And then you're spending all this money for what?
Yeah, yeah, for what?
It's gonna get beat
For
up,
20 games.
and the weather's gonna dictate how well the field maintains,
Yeah.
no matter what. You know, we don't have a dome, so, I mean, it's
Alright, so are we
all a lot of fun.
recommending to the MAU board to put the vote on hold then and not do a June? Because if we do a survey, it takes time to collect data from the survey. It takes time to then go over that data. A June vote means you have to have it warned in May. You know, you have to have at least 30 days, right, Renee? 40 days?
The only concern I have with the survey is that you don't get a ton of people filling it out.
Yeah, you know, as my statistics
Yes,
teacher had,
That's,
you know, you try to eliminate any bias and get it to as many people as possible. We did electronic, we gave paper versions to the senior center and the town of Bennington at the Y. I think we got 8 paper copies back total. It might have been 12, I don't remember, but it wasn't a lot of paper copies. So when you look at electronic copies, not making assumptions, no offense, Dave, but that's probably a younger demographic that is answering that versus the paper versus electronic. So you can't take offense when I say no offense. That's my point with surveys, is you're always gonna get some bias. The people that are on both extremes are gonna answer. You might get the people in the middle. We advertised it in the banner, social media. We had, I think it was under 800, just around 800 total. So yes, I'd love to know that data. But is it gonna help us make the next decision?
and I just feel like even if we get that survey, we get the results, then we still need to get at those questions and answer those questions. So does it make more sense to just do more in-person opportunities and advertise them better? Because I think we probably could have done a better job of advertising them last time for people to come. So if we're on a crunch time potentially with June, do we do that instead?
So I think that taking what Dave said, taking all the other data that we had in the presentation that you did, and have the 2 columns of costs, maybe, you know, Spinelli, fact and fiction, right? We can take out some ads in the banner, we can run a Facebook promotion on it. And I really think that Facebook, because you can engage conversation, you can address bad information. You can't address bad information from somebody who reads an article in the paper. You can't. So that's my take.
I think you should begin with some education.
And
Real
maybe that's
data.
what we need to focus our attention on now. I can start it with the information from the presentation that you've done. Maybe I get with Tony and get some better figures on the costs and You've already done the costs for the boosters.
That's in there, yeah.
So I can just take all that and put it into 2 columns.
Yeah, and we can get you the costs.
Yeah.
For, the projected fields, but then also field maintenance.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of the, part of the education piece of having like a per game, even if it's just apples to apples.
Yeah.
If we don't increase the number of games, throw lacrosse in there. Don't worry about the youth and all that other stuff, but, I do like that piece. I don't know if this is, I'll throw it out there now. I don't necessarily agree myself, but maybe it's a recommendation to Mount Anthony Board that we vote, if there is a special election in June, that it's 3 separate questions, that we bond, do the vote, the wording, whatever legal says, but basically X dollar amount for upgraded track, X dollar amount for upgraded lights, and X dollar amount for field. And you would have possibly all 2 or 3 or 1 get approved. That gives us an approved project, a funding source to move forward with that project, and a way to then possibly seek grants, fundraising. And we would know, okay, 2 of the 3, we have a clear no on turf, but we have the other 2. Let's move forward with those upgrades. We now have, like we said, a way of financing it and paying for it
Over time and not like
Yes,
putting
again,
500 out.
again,
Yeah.
I look at that individual 1-year hit of, I don't recommend coming out of the reserve account. I think of, ceiling caving in part of the building. How are you gonna fix something, without money? Sorry, Tony, I shouldn't put it up there, but I'm just saying. That's the fund is there for emergencies. I get it. A boiler burst, something, whatever. But, does that make, what other, does it
don't-
make sense to have 3 separate questions?
And whatever passes, I guess.
I think that.
And that'll give you your turf versus.
And we present it to the board and let them decide, and if they don't.
Yeah.
I think you could pose that,
As a recommendation.
as a recommendation. I think you could, that would give, the answer. And then that could also, you could also maybe say, maybe the board has a decision to do that. I do not think it's smart to just go back in June with the same, same thing. I don't think that's a smart decision. So I think if you were to divvy it up and we could reach out to the folks and get their, make sure we have the accurate,
The November, I'm
kind of
assuming the
numbers.
if it's approved in June, I don't know if the dollars would have changed much.
No, I know, but meaning
Oh, if
like,
it's individual. projects.
individual, like you've got to do
Sorry.
your split. So you
Right,
can't
because it
just
does
do
cost
like,
more, but
it's
if it is
like,
done individually,
Right.
we should budget for it. You're absolutely right. Sorry. Good point. Does that make sense? It took me a second.
Yeah.
I think that's smart, and then you can see, my other question is, does it make sense to throw as another alternative option, just saying, do we want to start on see if the board will, okay with and then give us more time, that would be, to me, if they're gonna okay the reserve for the track,
I don't think.
I don't think that's
I don't think
gonna
that's gonna happen.
okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, do we want to yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying from the conversation last week,
Okay.
it didn't sound like that was, because we talked about that
Okay.
at the meeting last week. It didn't sound like that was anything anybody was interested in touching that money.
So I think that's probably the, Renee, do you know, if there, I know there was, does the language on the bond have to be the same, or it can be different, to be be adjusted and rolled out?
My understanding it's, you're basically posing the same question, same content,
Yeah.
so same project essentially. That's what limits you to the 12-month period to 2 shots.
2 shots, gotcha. So that may be the smartest way to go, is to divvy it out so that you see the lights, you see the track, and you see the field. And then if the field is the hard no, then we know, well, that's where we've got to make adjustment.
And prior to that vote, we can do that cost analysis
Sure.
that shows the difference between the cost for a grass field versus a cost for turf field, and then potentially have those additional sessions where we can maybe answer some questions and, maybe get some misinformation out there and not get away from the misinformation out there as it relates to turf fields.
In the education process, part of the end, should that be the decisional impact? If you say yes, this isn't gonna happen. If you say no, this is still gonna take place.
Yeah.
He's still gonna have to maintain that track at $180,000 a year. So where are we, in being prudent with our finances? That's where I would look. It may just be the business guy,
No,
but
seeing,
I see
seeing
that.
both sides of it, I agree,
Yes.
is the cost analysis is, I think, important. I think everyone would
Yeah,
like to see,
education.
hey, I wasn't in favor of this, but knowing that, or vice versa,
Mhm.
hey, no,
Yeah.
I don't mind, it might switch some people to no.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
I also think we need to put somewhere on that sheet, this is the cost analysis of what we're doing. Or somewhere it really has to be stated to people that if we want to get grants in order to decrease the cost of this, it has to be approved by voters, or we can't go for funding to decrease the cost of us.
yeah,
And I don't know if
some
that's
kind-
some way we can put it
some
in the
kind of
fun little
disclaimer. Well,
paperwork
some
that
kind
says
of-
up to
Yeah. Well, I think even
bearing
for that
grant.
educational piece, this is, full cost, less any, possible donations /
Right.
grants received would only lower that impact.
Yeah, I don't know if that can be put on that
Yeah.
statement in
I
the,
don't think in
in the,
the ballot.
in the
No,
ballot.
there's very- legal is very, the wording on that was confusing to begin with.
You guys are gonna say no to this, Renee's gonna say no, but is there a way also to add a fourth item to the thing, meaning could it be the lights, the track? Could you look at redoing a grass, field and give a cost to that? And then put the turf there? Because again, I'm thinking, and this is my fear, yes to the lights, yes to the track, no to the turf. And then
Still have
what are we doing? We'll start a project and we're not gonna have. So the question is, that's really gonna
You can
say,
ask 4 questions and that just increases the education piece
right,
of, these are the 4 options.
Right.
It's like going to,
and you can
all
be a
country
no for
buffet,
everything.
what are you gonna decide to
You
eat?
know?
And
Yeah.
it's possible that all 4 pass.
Right.
And then the MAU board still has an option to then
Correct.
choose which of the 4 that what they would go with. Am I correct on that, Renee?
And the attorney's gonna.
Yeah. He never said
I'll
yes,
find
I'm
out.
asking if I'm correct.
I don't know, so that's just, I'm just thinking
You're married.
you'll have the answer if,
No, I
like,
don't disagree.
if you were to ask, because my fear would be you do this in June, again,
Yeah.
you get a no for the turf and now all right, we're still.
Well, then
now
we
we're-
have the funding for the track and we have the funding for the
Right.
lights and we just move ahead with those.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but then
We still
we're
have
gonna.
So we still have the grass
Same
field.
concerns with.
But it's gotta widen, it's gotta
Right.
because it right now doesn't
But
fit.
And that cost analysis of widening whatever might be something you
That
can
we can
build
fit into
into
the
the
budget,
26
yeah.
budget, because that's gonna be under, I don't say under 100,000, but I'm thinking, no, it won't, okay.
No, because the widening means you've gotta
Yes, I know what you mean, yeah, no, and then
redo
all
the
the-
bottom.
all the
of
drainage,
the-
yeah.
So-
Do we have a quote from Peter, what that?
No. We have the, excuse me, original.
We have the original somewhere, I
But I don't have to widen the field, he gave me a ballpark on the phone, but excuse me, I don't think he's truly looked at it to see.
Well, because you can't just widen it without
But we
gutting.
have to do something with the
Yeah.
current drainage where it
On the
is.
playing
So,
surface.
yeah, so we gotta get it off. That means move it. I don't know if we could just shift it over a little bit, put something under there and move the grade. I don't know. I don't
What do you
know.
mean the shape of the field with the crown, it
He's got
goes
it
like that
crowned,
and then
right,
it, and
he's
then.
got it
it's all
crowned
that.
right now for the width it is.
Correct.
So we'll have to redo the crown again to get it.
So the,
So that's I don't, that, to me, when you go to the voters, let's try to get as much information as you And I don't know what the no's are.
Mike, you're basically be asking the question by educating the numbers.
Right.
So if option 3 is everything, turf, lights, and track. But option 4 is lights, track, and grass. And it's only $500,000 less.
Right.
With $180,000 a year delta in maintenance costs.
Right.
Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out.
Right. Right.
Unless you're just totally opposed to turf.
Correct.
And then you're still gonna get the no on the turf.
Yep.
And maybe the yes on the grass.
Yes.
So I like that because I think we do the original project. And then, like you just said, lights, track, grass, not lights, track, grass, and then project with grass. Does that make sense? Because that would negate the other ones, you know what I mean? Like, I think it doesn't give you that difference between turf versus grass unless you keep that original project and then break out the three.
So you would only have 2 questions.
Three, so you would have the cost, the original cost,
Yes.
right? And then we'd have an estimate for the track, that would be another one, estimate for the lights, that'd be another one, and then we need to get an estimate for grass. Widening the
So we have
field,
to be four,
so before budget, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but like, I think we were originally saying the 4 would be track, lights, turf, and then combined with grass. But I think it needs to be opposite. I think it needs to be combined with turf, then track, lights, grass. That makes basically what you just
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
But do you does that make sense why? That I think
You
it
have
needs to be
spell
that.
it out for people as to how it makes sense why. You're not gonna have everybody like him who could do math and.
Right.
You're gonna need to explain this and explain that and then a
No,
contingent
so
answer.
that's one of our recommendations.
Yeah,
But I think that's where your graph comes in.
Yeah.
That explains it. But also, you've got some gate money that it's minimal. What gate you're gonna get from lacrosse and so on. But you're gonna get that from anything else that you might be able to utilize it for that actually has gate money to it and concession money to it.
So
So.
concession money
it
is
doesn't go
different.
there. Right.
It doesn't go to the school, it goes to whatever team is doing the concession for me.
Right.
Or the booster club gets it and then we can earmark it for scholarships for the kids, for teams if they need something or clubs if they need something. So that money technically does not go into the school,
No, I
it
understand that.
pays for the
But
kids.
but it is money
Right.
that's used for the kids of the
Right.
school.
Yes.
So that's gonna be one recommendation. So I'm just trying to get it accurate for the minutes. If I need to report it at your next meeting, I can come. So that would be our vote recommendation. Another recommendation is to create a fundraising committee separate from this committee. Other people on this committee can sit if they volunteer, but put it out publicly. Maybe there's someone that does that for a living and wants to be on, it. Yes. Again, so that's another recommendation. And then I think the other recommendation I had was, is it possible to then utilize our public relations or seek? I don't know rules, laws against, you don't see the school board vote for this on our budget or any project like the towns do. So I don't know, board members, if that's a legality thing, why? Like, when I read Stewart's thing in the paper or I read, the town of Bennington's releases, they're always asking you to support their bonds, asking you to, but we don't see that as the school supporting. I'm not faulting the schools, I don't know the rules behind it. So can we use PR to garner support and get this, if we're gonna do education, you gotta get it out in front of people, and that costs money, so, or it costs skills that I don't have. So I guess that's my part, is can we get someone to promote the informational meetings more, promote the project, promote the background, whatever. Does that make sense for the other recommendation? Were there any other recommendations we were making to the board?
I don't think we can at this time. I think that's.
and are you working on, you said you're gonna work on
Cost analysis.
cost analysis?
Any other feedback to the MEU board from this committee? All right, I guess we'll adjourn unless there's anything else. All right, thank you for the input. Thank you for the work, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, good evening at 6 o'clock. Looks like we're unmuted and ready to go. Those of you watching at Cat TV and maybe those that don't know the room, I am Chad Gordon, and this is the Spinelli Ad Hoc Committee. Our first item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone in the Zoom, Renee?
Other than Cat TV.
Any public comments currently?
Hey, I'll make a couple.
Sure, just
Fran,
identify yourself.
yeah, Fran Kenny, taxpayer, used to be on the board, but not anymore. I don't know if you know, you people play Mount Greylock?
In some sports.
Oh, okay. You play them in football or anything? Okay.
They played in lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
Yeah, okay.
And soccer.
Williams College has given them $6 million to redo their fields. For 3 years, they've been talking about turf fields. The professors and the school and some parents have said no, so they're not gonna have a turf field. Just so you'll know, that's what's going on, and Williams College is paying for that because they have plenty of money to do so.
Has the information, I can make sure you get it. I can also put you in direct contact with Rutland because they're replacing their